not comfortable with the current president succeeding him. And like a blind spouse in love, we brushed it off. People used to come to us. I remember Honorable Mudama came to me when he was on the other side. Him and Khalwale. Incidentally, now we are playing on the same side. And they came to me that time on the floor of the Senate. I think it was, we were discussing impeachment of the deputy governor of Machakos, Kiala. Because he was a friend of Mudama, Mudama wanted our support against the current Minister of Foreign Affairs at that point in time, who was sponsoring, although pretending not to, the removal of his own deputy. So he walked to me and said, you know what, we will work together after the elections. And he told me, you know, because we are in the opposition, there are certain things we listen to. He told me that some of the things that you see us discussing from the opposition side, they don't come from ourselves. These things are leaked from State House and Harambee House, and that there were certain individuals working within Harambee House who are actually keen on painting the deputy president then as corrupt, because as they told me then, that when a hyena wants to eat his children, they first have to say that they smell like goats. And I was like, no, for me it was like, oh, this is just mere political persuasion. The two things that were very instructive to me were, one, that when we were in ICC, as soon as President Uhuru Kenyatta's case came to an end, the concerted effort of the state to campaign for the president and his deputy, suddenly they reduced the intensity. And some of the officers who had been sent to do diplomatic work were now relaxed in Nairobi, and they didn't want to discuss this matter. That forced some of us, I remember myself, Governor Sang, and former CS Charles Keter, hatched a plan to organize a prayer meeting in Kiptororo. And when history, of course, will be, when you look at history again, you remember that, you know, we planned Kiptororo through the press, because we sat down and announced and said that it's only Rift Valley leaders who are going, to be very precise, unfortunately, we had to say, you know, it was all colleges in the country were going to converge in Kiptororo Forest to pray for their own son. And the conversation gained a certain level of intensity that caused chaos within government. In fact, that was one of the most attended prayer rallies, because as a result of that scheme that we had, President Kenyatta was very uncomfortable, because he was facing a re-election, and he felt that now he was going to face rejection. And as a result, we achieved our objective. The president mobilized the entire Jubilee administration then to come to Kiptororo, and the deputy president, who was still a bit more, you know, the thing about William Ruto is that when he believes in somebody, he believes wholeheartedly, and he rarely listens to these, you know, dissenting voices. So he was really into, you know, me and Uhuru are brothers. One day even said, you know, Uhuru, if everybody else will leave me, I'm sure of only one vote. He was telling us in a meeting of Jubilee. We sometimes make fun of him. He was telling us one time in a PG that if there is a vote I am sure about of all these people, is for Uhuru Kenyatta. But the truth is that we could see indicators of behavior of President Uhuru that was not proper. So Kiptororo happened. The government instructed the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister of Interior, and we all went for an ACP conference in The Hague. I think Duale captures a bit of the story in his book. And then we sat there for almost 15 to 16 days fighting for our own freedom, because, you know, now the process had become a process of fixing leaders. And that was one indicator. The other was the by-election in Kericho. When Charles Keter was appointed to be a cabinet secretary, and we were going for the by-elections. Of course, nomination process took place. As soon as it was over, our candidate was Aaron Cheruiyot, the current majority leader, Senate. And we went there, and the campaign was, there was a big hype on the opposition side. The president, of course, said he wasn't going to come. He was the president anyway. He cannot present it, but we understood to that extent. But you'd see that the energy and the vigor that was in Kanu at that point in time was actually at par, even if it was not better than the Jubilee Party, which was our side. Remember, Aaron and Honorable Waititu were the first two members of Parliament of Jubilee Party. So it was difficult. We pushed, and then eventually, anyway, we won. But even when we were campaigning, we were getting intelligence that the government was trying everything possible. Some faction of government led by one of the advisors of Uhuru were doing everything to see that Kanu wins and therefore Gideon Moi wins, because they were entertaining in their mind the thought that in 2017 we need to change the running mate of the president so that then we can plan succession by bringing in Gideon Moi at that point in time and so forth. Remember, many years down the line, the President Kenyatta in this second term lied to Gideon that he was going to make him the candidate for Azimio, and even went ahead in just to contextualize in Nyeri, one of those meetings, tribal meetings he used to hold, and told them that I made a pact with the Kalenjin community, not with an individual, and therefore I will give them another individual. So at that point in time, he was still entertaining the thought that he was going to support Gideon Moi for presidency. So there were indicators. The campaign of painting William Ruto as corrupt was so intense, and it never mattered if the deputy president then traveled even for one trip. Remember the whole story about they called it jet scandal or something, a plane that was hired for the deputy president to go and visit a few countries in West Africa. It was always made a scandal. Any invoice that comes from the office of the deputy president used to be made public quickly, and then a campaign, a propaganda is done, and so forth. So it was always internal. And so the people who were fairly in the know, and particularly our friends who had gone to campaign for Kanu during the Kericho by-election, began to collect information. People like Oscar Sudi, who was then at that point campaigning for Kanu, became privy to so much information that by the time the campaign ended, he told us that he was surprised the extent and the depth of the dislike by President Uhuru Kenyatta on his deputy. Now, fast forward, elections is over. The Supreme Court is seized of the matter. The hearing has been done. Submissions have been closed. Judges have retreated. They are going to make a decision in 2017. Prior to that, we have a PG meeting. I think the PG meeting was either on Thursday or something like that. Wednesday or Thursday, I think so, if I'm right, if I'm not wrong. The president talked so badly about you people go and sit in Karen there. He starts saying Ruto will do what you will know. I am still the strong, I am the kingpin. And he said something very unfortunate, that he was going to make sure that all the members of parliament that have been elected are sent home. And that so he said something wrong about the boss. He used very derogatory language. He used a very foul language there. So everybody wondered what was the problem. The next day, the Supreme Court makes a decision and then nullifies the elections. By that time, of course, now we know there is a problem. Of course, we went, okay, he called for another PG, he apologized. Then we went for the campaign. Then, of course, we won. As I told you, it's like a spouse in love and in marriage. You know there is something wrong with your spouse. But because you are so much in love, you ignore. And because also you are inside, Maybe you are a wife and you have 3 children already and they're all boys. So to disentangle from that relationship needs a lot of tact. So you can't just wake up and say, and at that point in time, we either suffered together or failed together or succeed together. Yeah. And it was still better to win and be in the side of government than to bring everything to an end. So really, and even if we wanted, it was too late because these are repeat elections. But it was not necessary at that point. Tactfully, it was better to suffer inside than, not to be anywhere near administration or government. Remember also something else that people have never contextualized. Uhuru's yangu kumi, yako kumi was never uttered by William Ruto. It was a solemn and personal declaration by President Uhuru Kenyatta, an oath that he took on his own. Even the declaration of, in Eldoret, yangu kumi, ya Ruto kumi, we finish, I make sure that this man will not come back. I'm sure his conscience was also playing, because in his head, he may have been thinking that people know, or he was privy to this general conversation. Sometimes, by the way, it was the opposition who used to voice that Uhuru will not support Ruto publicly. So Uhuru was dealing with, because the information, the things that were happening inside were leaking through the opposition, who had the courage to voice. Because when they used to go to Rift Valley, they would go and tell the people, that man will not support you in 2022. Which, of course, they were right. And Uhuru kept his word, the way he told people privately, but lied publicly that yangu kumi, Ruto kumi. He tried to get out of that thing. So he hoped that we were going to insist, but we couldn't, because it wasn't our decision. It was his own declaration. The current president, never at any point said, I'm supporting Uhuru conditionally. It was Uhuru himself who offered to support him in 2022.
So here you help Uhuru Kenyatta.
Yes. We are now in office. And then suddenly, one day, he calls the president. Of course, the president tells, if you talk to the president now, he says, okay, in passing, he mentioned to him about that, I want to talk to Tinga to bring this. Remember, there were protests and then followed by rallies and then personal swearing in. President Uhuru, it's a bit confusing because the president was busy. He wanted to win Wetangula, Musalia, and Kalonzo at that point and leave Raila alone. But I think he had a dual strategy. Either get Raila to come in or get the others. He sent me himself to go and meet Kalonzo. And in his characteristic behavior, Kalonzo told me, people are already calling me watermelon. If I cross over, it will mess up my career. But Kalonzo keeps doing the same because he refused to cross over, but eventually when Raila crossed over to work with Uhuru, eventually he became like an accompaniment, an unwanted accompaniment. He actually was like pushing himself to be able to come to this side. At that point in time, the plan was not to kill opposition. It was like, okay, leave Raila to run the opposition, but let Kalonzo come and work with us. So I spoke to him, other people spoke to him. And meanwhile, I think other people were speaking to Raila because they were so much in hatred. They so much hated William Ruto that they didn't want him to win. So they brought in a strategy. And of course, the strategy moved in. In the first instance, it was a lie, though. The first instance was that we are going to establish a council of elders. That's what the president told his deputy, that will go around uniting the country and bringing people together. And he asked the president for names. So the president suggests a number of people, including the current senator for Machakos, Kavindu. At that point in time, it was the current president, the deputy president then, who suggested her name. I don't know, 2 other people, so he suggested their names. And so eventually, the so-called BBI committee was established, but then the mandate was mutating. So it became a lie. First of all, there was a public pronouncement of the handshake at Harambee. I was sitting with the president, the current president, in his office in Karen, and suddenly there is breaking news. And I'm asking him, did you know about it? He said, no, but I knew a little because Uhuru just told me that, oh, I'm meeting Tinka. I want to make sure that we agree to form a council of elders to unite the country. But the pronouncements that came from there, I would see the president, Ruto, was uncomfortable. But because he always didn't want to show his soldiers that there was any problem, he remained calm and told us, okay, it's fine. So we told him there seems to be a problem. Other people came in. And of course, now the process of sidelining him started from there, continued. So Uhuru was juggling between keeping William Ruto. So sometimes we tell him, no, I'm just doing this to finish this man completely and make sure that I pave the way for you to become president easily. We have agreed with Tinka. Remember, if you see some of our pronouncements, which went public, is because even President Uhuru told me personally that we have agreed with Tinka, he will not run. So you people don't fight somebody who is not running. We have agreed that he exits the stage and then he goes to African Union and we end all this politics of hatred and blah, blah, blah. Then you people can compete with other people. And we are in an environment that is fair, that is. But as days went by, you would see consistently people around Uhuru Kenyatta attacking the deputy president then. Ministers were now instructed not to attend any meeting at the office of the deputy president. Ministers were instructed not to attend public functions that the deputy president went, whether it was launching of roads. Slowly it moved from ministers to PSS, moved to MDs, denying them the opportunity to meet. So quickly, the president, Uhuru, then succeeded in making sure that the office of the deputy president is completely bankrupted from functioning. But, we were hiding. We're playing. That's how the deputy president stopped operating from town because there was no work. So Karen became a better place because it's hidden. We would go there, strategize, think about what we need to do, encourage ourselves. But, the president never wanted to insult President Uhuru, never wanted to go show public anger against the President Uhuru Kenyatta. He knew that is not our competitor, and he kept insisting to us that what Uhuru is doing is to distract us from competition so that our competitor gets easy time. Let's focus on Tinka. Tinka is the candidate. It is not Uhuru Kenyatta. So that focus he had. Of course, you remember the Tanga derogatory statement that he made in Eastlands here, that, hii kijana akikuja kutanga hapa. We knew it was negative. The president, we all turned out to say, we are Tanga. We go all over. And when I remember President Uhuru called me, I don't remember what motion it was in the Senate. I was in my office and then I tell him, oh yeah, he tells me, so wanasemaje huko? Then I said, everything is okay, Your Excellency, except that some people are making a lot of noise about Tanga. He became quickly defensive. Kwani nimesema nini? Said something I've said. I've just said he goes to check programs. I said, that's what we are telling people. But in my head, I knew there was a catch here. And then he'd moved to how people were removed from Mao quickly. So we were now being set up. Things were being done to see how we are going to react. So we sat down. I told the president, it was my personal initiative. I told the president, as the chair of Rift Valley leaders, I will take the bullet. Okay? I'll take the bullet. I'm a majority leader. There's no problem. If you remove me, that's fine. I'll take the bullet. I'll go and say poorly to those people. We took two choppers with some leaders. We landed in Mao there. And we told people we didn't mind people coming from Mao. What we just wanted is a conversation and compensation for these people. We had interesting meetings there. Of course, the next day, I think Sakaja was used to issue a statement that I was being disrespectful to the president and that I should be stripped of my position as majority leader. That is when now, from around that time, I knew I was living on a borrowed time. But I was maximizing it. Every given opportunity, I was maximizing. He moved slowly to removing people. Anybody who was associated with the deputy president now in position of leadership. Started with impeachment of leaders, YT2, followed by Sonko. Because somebody told them, those are ground mobilizers. You need to destroy them, completely. And then it moved to a number of things that he had to do. He cancelled contracts of Arora and Kimwarer. He was hoping that he was going to set the president against his own people. He cancelled a contract of Bosto Dam in Bomet. So for us who were inside, knew. But you know, the media and everybody, we could not fight against them because they were saying, why are we defending corruption? There is stolen money in Aronkemware, there is what, but it had nothing to do with that. As people started being arrested, being charged, you know, no wonder those cases, all of them collapsed because all of them were politically motivated. And so that's how we went. We went slowly by slowly. I think COVID was a big blessing for us. I think COVID was, I mean, it's a terrible disease, but the COVID period actually, we were even discussing yesterday with a number of our friends who were elected, saying, you know, COVID period made us a team. Because what had happened, we were locked in. So what we used to do, we would agree on where to meet. We would drive to somebody's house, then choma nyama, and then we talk, we strategize, we plan. The president, even the current president at some point, now used this COVID period to invite people to his place, support hustlers. That's how we farmed up many things. We were in denial. We believed even we were going to get the party to ourselves. But we saw the party is going. At some point, we had to make a decision to start a new party. I remember how well we met several times to agree on the name of the party. The last man to leave Jubilee in his head was the current president. The rest of us are already left, and we told him we will not get the party. Let's start another party.
All of you guys were wearing yellow, but he wasn't.
He wasn't. He was still saying, you know, Jubilee is our party. We've spent a lot of money. Jubilee. So sometimes we go to the party headquarters there. He thought that we were going to seize the party. But we realized that we were not going to get the party. So we moved out of that party, which became a blessing because we were a big team who had come from different political parties. So it was comfortable to start afresh for everybody. Jubilee as a party, at that point in time, had accumulated a lot of wrong things, associated wrong things, because, you know, the president had become removed with the reality on the ground. And a number of things had been done in second term to fail us in many of the programs. It was also easy now to turn, if we left Jubilee, it was easy to turn President Uhuru Kenyatta, combine together with Reall, and make them the incumbents. So we were now, like Wetangula used to tell me, that we were now at the outer layer of the onion ring. So it was easy for those who were in the core, in what we dubbed as handshake government, to take over the problems that were associated with the period of this handshake. Which is true because we played very little role. We became outcast from the system. So what gave us this strength is, one, you would see the ground was with us. The former president was making a blunder after blunder by humiliating his deputy publicly. He was building us, and the momentum was building. Our agenda was resonating. There was also another mistake he was making. The mistake of tribalism will work. For us, we had read the environment and we knew that tribalism is not going to work. What was going to work is an agenda. We had, as a country, we have reached a certain stage where, though, you know, a candidate will be supported from the region where he comes from by a majority of the people, but to get the majority of the Kenyans, you needed an agenda and a passion and vision that was going to sell. So it didn't matter. For example, in these elections, President Uhuru Kenyatta and Martha Karua were from the same region, and they were supporting Reall, and they could not deliver. Kashagwa, Deputy President, and the rest of the team, Ichungwa, Ndindi, all these Anway Guru, and the team, Alice, Moses, were also on our side, and they delivered because of the agenda. So the agenda played a critical role of making sure that this team is going to succeed. So we had, as I told you, the COVID period helped us to sit down and think and plan and put together a team and sell an agenda and sell a vision that was not only bought by Kenyans but first bought by ourselves. And the persecutions we are all facing became the right motivation for us to flock together it was easy to flock together because there was this motivation of making sure that we overcome our adversaries.
There's one thing you talked about, and I kept wondering how you guys were able to turn things around.
What helped us first is that we had a team, okay, led by the president, okay. We had a team, a William Ruto team. That team had also many volunteers. There is nothing so good as people coming in knowing that there is no financial gain in the immediate. Yeah, we were also working against the grain, so there was a motivation of what can we do? How much can we do to bring down a president and a former prime minister? You know, there was some, you know, there's a Goliath. You know, if you fail this Goliath, it's a big, huge thing. So there was a good time. I mean, new politicians were doing experiments. Some of us who had never played a critical role in successions before were telling ourselves, this Kenyatta 2 succession, we must be at the center of it. We want to know what can be able to do. You had a team leader who was a very good coach and understood how to place his players. He always had people who come from different backgrounds and very difficult political differences, but he was able to balance them because he always gave everybody their attention separately. But also we had a media team. We had a team that was doing finance mobilization. In fact, the finance mobilization team was so discreet. Many people never got to know who they are, and they did not have form. They were formless. So because we had to do that, because many policies were introduced to make sure that we don't get access to money and friends to support us. That's why people are being arrested. People who are suspected to be friends of the president and they have done business with government were not being paid for their businesses. Those who do not even do with government, their money in their accounts were charged for flimsy charges so that they can block their accounts. So there was a concerted effort to block. But still, somehow friends were still able to contribute their resources in quiet manner. Many people did not know were able to do so. But the other thing is that in this team, so we had also another team that was doing science, opinion polls. When I went there's one interview, if you see in Citizen TV, I was there with Kajwang, and I announced that we had our own figures. I wasn't lying. You know, remember, there were so many sponsored opinion polls that were fake. But our own, we knew when we were down. We even know today, if we go and pull out all those opinion polls, we know at what stage, who came, what percentage change did it make. And so that is how we were doing the signing. We pursued players in the political arena based on their value in the opinion polls. Now, first of all, Musalia Mudavadi and Moses Wetangula have a solid political CV, having served in so many positions in government. Remember, President Uhuru Kenyatta was keeping people away from us to deny us credibility. And credibility and perception to the extent that, you know, we are not electable and we don't have the big wigs. So we were also dealing first with the perception. First, before you go to the numbers, we had been so isolated, so much isolated intentionally, so that we look like we are a team of jokers. Because, you know, it's the Murkomens, the Kindikis, the Ichungwas, who knows them? You know, these are Didimas, Barasas, Osoros, you know, Linturis, Aisha Jumwa. We were some kind of a pack of generally a team of characters who lack credibility. And so for Uhuru, I have the big people. I have Wetangula, I have Mudavadi, I have Gideon Moi, I have Charity Ngilu, I have Tinga, and myself and Martha Karua, we cooperate ourselves there, and then, we appear like we are. So, to be very honest, our first start was we need some credibility. Okay, we need people who can give us, a good image. Even if we have Mount Kenya already, we need JB Muturi. For people to say, the speaker was a close friend of Uhuru, is also part of the team. Yeah. If Kalonzo is not coming, we need Mutua. Because Mutua, at least as a party, and succeeded to win in that party, we will have, will consolidate the strength we have in Ukambani when he meets with our party chairman, Modama. So all these people were bringing certain credibility. And what does that do? It will tell our base, if Weta and Mudavadi and Mutua and JB Muturi have joined the Tanga, it means they know something that they are going to win. What does that do? It lifts your base. It lifts your base. It gives them the confidence to come and vote. It gives them the courage to know that they are making the right thing. So that is the first value that came with this party bigwigs. Yeah. Of course, you don't know what would have happened if they didn't come, because maybe we were going to attract somebody else. That's also the possibility that those who are locked there could have come. We were doing fairly well in Bungoma. We were not doing very well in Kakamega. Trans Nzoia, we were fairly 50-50. In fact, Trans Nzoia is a place where we may not have made a big change, but Wetangula's coming made Bungoma a big change. It was a big change. That's how pushed us to almost 70%. He added very good points. I can't for sure say it was how many. I don't have the figures now between when we were and when he joined. And then Mudavadi could have made the biggest contribution, because a small change in the 1 million votes in Kakamega was about 900,000 votes, almost a million. It was a small change is big. Yes. We were stagnating in 20-something, almost 30. We made a big change to 30-something. A change of 5% in a million votes is a big change. Yeah. So both Mudavadi and Wetangula made their sizable contribution to our success. Just like, the others made contribution that you may not quantify exactly what JB Muturi contribution is, but it adds into the solidification of Mount Kenya as a block, as a team. And that's why he became an integral part and player of this team. First, Mount Kenya, we didn't have a competitor, because Tinga had destroyed himself politically in Mount Kenya. His previous campaigns of, 41 versus 1, his previous campaigns of, how he handled President Kibaki, and now he handled this competition against President Uhuru, made it very difficult to turn around. In fact, it was even worse, because during handshake period, the policies that were put in place did not resonate well with the people of Mount Kenya. So meaning everything went to, Tinga took most of the blame because of the policies of Uhuru Kenyatta, with his support, that were not helping farmers, were not helping business community, largely coming from that region, of course, because of the farming and business acumen and the size of the businessmen and women that come from that region. But number two was that they didn't have a campaigner. Uhuru Kenyatta lacked credibility. It was zero, because he's the one who went around telling people that after me it's Ruto. He had finished he had exhausted his bonga points, if you put it that way. And you have a very distant, mild campaigner who was not very sure, who every time was confronted, he says, Nana amesema sitaki Ruto. All the time, he kept saying, Nana amesema sitaki Ruto. So his last foray for the last 3 months was useless. Because even when people looked at it, they said, oh my God, really? Did you have to do this? Why did you just say, I don't like campaigning for any of them, they are my friends, let them try their best? So you had a campaigner who lacked credibility and had doubt himself as to whether it was the right thing to campaign for Tinga. That's why you call people straight out Sagana and started ranting there in mother tongue and all that. He never attended any rally anywhere in Mount Kenya and asked any vote. So, and a person who really, as a politician, had a lot of disgust on common people and voters, because then he had this entitlement that he was some king. He underestimated the democratic nature of the people of Mount Kenya region. So he felt like he had their votes in his pocket and that he would wake up 3 months to the elections and give it to Tinga. And he was ruled wrong because he didn't understand the demographics, he didn't understand the politics. He was blinded by his name and the name of his father and the position he held, that it was going to be permanent. It's a lesson for all of us who are politicians. You'd never take people for granted. The reason why people lose elections is for the same reason, taking voters for granted, no agenda, no reason, no convincing reason why. People kept waiting to hear what is the one reason why he disagreed with William Ruto, and the reasons were as flimsy as it could be. So 1, 2, 3, Sagana never yielded any fruits, and every time we went there it backfired. And then people who used to go there, sometimes we mobilized some of them to go there and so forth. So the young Turks from Mount Kenya played a very big role. Ndindi Nyoro, my friend Kimani Chungwa, and then you had Kindiki, part of the team, Cecil Barire. He later joined. Cecil also shocked us because everybody expected her to go with Uhuru. She even was willing to lose her position. Anwar Guru, who joined us again later. Farm people like Rehab Mukami, for example, very quiet and firm. You expected a lady like that should have just joined the government, the Nyeri women rep. They are silent people, by the way, that are rarely celebrated, like Reall Mukami, who are in the background, or somebody like Wamashukuru in Kabete. Rarely do people talk about such people, but they were solid and firm, never bothered to ask any question or anything. They were not in public so much speaking, but they were firm. They were firm and they were supporting us. So slowly by slowly, those people were reading. And the young Turks were very firm. Of course, people like Susan Kihika. There was even a time Uhuru assumed that he was going to remove me and keep Susan because she's a Kihika. It's rather obvious that if the father worked with Jomo Kenyatta, how is it not so obvious that Susan was going to join him? So there was all this new team, and of course an elder like Gachagua, who had worked closely with Uhuru, and everybody assumed that this is a close friend of Uhuru Kenyatta and he's going to go with him. So all this, played a very big role in our campaign. And you got Nyandarua, for example, became one of our strongest base. Yeah, but who was leading Nyandarua? A woman called Faith. Yeah, Faith Gitau was the one who was on the forefront to make sure that we succeed. And so the way the boss worked was such that he recognized every important asset. He never just said, this one is not known, her name is not in public, or his name or whatever. No. He identified every team member and accepted people to join us. And so that's how Kangatas and the rest now joined us, Kiunjuri and the rest of the team. If we talk happened is that for a long time, I knew certain things in private, that were happening. We would meet, the president would share to a small team of his friends the very frustrations he had with Uhuru. Not everybody, but a few of us. Then the rest of us would, find a way of communicating in a easy way about what's happening. So BBI was changing let me tell you something which is a paradox. Do you know that Raila Odinga didn't know the contents of BBI reports? That he saw them for the first time in Bomas. He did not know. BBI was being run by the president himself, a lady called she's called Gitau, Nancy Gitau, and then Ambassador Kimani, who was holding it here. I think Ambassador Kimani used to keep it in his and then I think those people knew, and I'm sure, I cannot be very sure, but I guess the of course Director General of NIS. So it's a small group. The BBI team, including Nzeaji, the late, did not know what was the content of the report. And let me tell you something. Some of the serious contents were against the Senate. So when we confronted Haji and Amos Wako, he told us, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, we don't know this report. We don't even know where it was drafted. When the President Ruto was in State House, the morning before now we go to Bomas, and they are checking out the report, Tinga asks him, do you have a copy of this report? You know, have you seen it? I think it was a day before. And then the President said, so Deputy President then William Ruto comes and tells us, even Tinga does not know this thing. So we go to Bomas, and the whole scene is choreographed. Okay? Uhuru, of course, has put his clauses and report and issues inside this report. And then the function is choreographed now to humiliate us. And I could see, you know. Now, before then, let me go back. Before that, I made a personal decision, to invade BBI rallies. Okay? So I didn't want the BBI rallies because being funded by state resources. I said, I can as well go there and, you know, pass my message. So I went to Mombasa and spoke in Mombasa. That time I said, if you want to support, let's go parliamentary. If you want parliamentary, let's go, blah, 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 blah. In any case, you know, if our friends from this region who never believed in parliamentary system, we can do and say a few things. Then I realized, this thing works. That day I was, you know, the trending guy or whatever. Then I went to Kitui. We were a bit humiliated. Now Moses became my partner, Moses Kuria, because we talked and told me, I'm told you are going to Mombasa. I said, I'm going. Said, I'm also coming. So we went to Mombasa with Moses, but because I'm majority leader, I was always given a chance to speak. So I went to Kitui. I was given a chance to speak Kidogo. I think, you know, there was a push and whatever. Tinga spoke for about 10 minutes. It was a failure. Moses became the trending news that time because he was held, thrown out, he sat down, the police, and he was beaten. Then the best of them all, we flew with Moses to, I think that was after Bomas, I suspect. We went to Meru. That was the best moment. Because I addressed the rally, Moses could not address. My stage as a majority leader gave me the floor to speak because these people do not want also to expose their hypocrisy that actually all this game was to just get Tinka to become president. So I spoke and then I left when the rally was on. As we left with Moses, people left the stadium because we were waving at people as we go. So we didn't really realize the magnitude. But when we were on the chopper, then it was trending. We are on our way to Nairobi. They are still in the rally. It is trending that people are leaving the rally. They have followed Moses and Murkomen. By the time we're in Nairobi, Kalonzo, we get clips of Kalonzo saying, hey, hata kama watu wanatoka, kuna maneno nataka niseme tu kidogo. You know, he had helped us. So anyway, the Boma situation, because so that I don't mix up, I realized that the people being called, Junaid the MC is calling people who are being already choreographed to some insulting us and all that. So I said, okay, let it be. This is my day. I sent someone to tell Junaid that I wanted to speak. He refused. He would respond. So Duale went by force, sort of found a way. He went addressed. He was a bit civilized. But when I went there, I'd lost my cool a little bit. So I spoke my mind. I said, now when they booed me, okay, I said, thank God they did this. I stood my ground. And there was only one thing in my mind. I wanted to end the meeting. Okay? I wanted that day to go on record that the president and the deputy and everybody did not address the rally because Ting had not addressed the rally because Murkomen caused chaos. So I wanted them to stand, do whatever they want. And I could see Uhuru was already agitated. He was picking the mic. He wanted to now take the stage himself because the meeting was getting into disarray. So that day, of course, the meeting continued. The deputy president spoke calmly. It was the next bombers that was his best moment. But that was my day. It was my day by default. I did not plan. I didn't go to bombers knowing that it was going to be my day. I went there as a majority leader knowing there was a good program. I was going to say good comments there and say the report that is here should be validated and blah, 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 and then sit down. But because of the booing, I said, let it be, because I knew millions of Kenyans were watching and they were anti what we were doing in bombers and they were against all this thing about BBI. There's a side of, perhaps many people don't know about me, yeah? I could be laughing and all that, but I can be very firm. There was a debate whether I should have relaxed and stopped being public opposing President Uhuru's policies, and yet I'm majority leader. And I kept asking myself, if I don't do, who will do? So that's how I went to, the first incident was, it forced me to go to Mau Forest. The second incident was that it forced me to speak publicly against BBI. The third was to speak publicly and on record about Aurora and Kemwarer, the deceit that was in Aurora and Kemwarer, and the pretense. And I told Kenyans that we were going to lose money, and we have lost money. And you will know the figure that we have lost because of that incident of Aurora and Kemwarer, just because of politics. The other was I spoke against NMS and the taking over of, I was majority leader, but I said I must go on record. How can I have been in the founders of devolved government as a devolution chair, but most importantly, worked on all these laws in the task force on devolved government, and then sit here not to say something? People will. So I said, a majority leader, I'll go on record. I went to court when the president refused certain legislation to come to the Senate. In fact, that could have been among the last responsibilities I performed. So all these things, the last of the last why we were removed is when Professor Kindiki, who was the deputy speaker, gave me the floor to shred NMS and the deceit around NMS. And of course, Uhuru said he was not going to stand it, and of course, in May 12, we were removed. So all May 12 in 2020. So all these things, I had seen that my end was nigh, and it was very important to make sure that we do it right. Somebody had to do it, to put things on record. So despite the fact that I am a very loyal supporter of the people I believe in, and I never shied away from telling President Uhuru Kenyatta the truth. I never. People will tell you, even in meetings, I used to speak at a time that it looked so unlikely that any person should. He is so angry, he's banging tables. Then I would do like this. And I say, Your Excellency, you know, this, you are a president of the Republic of Kenya, and I'll do it respectively. This will make you look bad. It will make our government look bad. We have to do some things for posterity. Then, in most cases, because we were friends, and to be very honest, one day when he was so happy with me, he told a friend of mine, they have their Orengo, but I have my own Orengo in Murkomen. Because he believed so much in my capability and my commitment and friendship, and I never thought there was anything to do to backstab him, and I was very frank to him. No wonder after he removed me, the next day I was in my law firm across here, and he called for 45 minutes, and he's telling me, oh, you know, why are you people making me stressed? I don't even think, why am I in this situation? I should be resting as a president. But I can't even sleep, you know. I said, you know, Mr. President, I am now a former majority leader. I am in opposition. I want to try the things you used to do against Kibaki, yeah, for the sake of our country. Oh, you know, I'm not like other presidents. Tell Ruto, I don't hate anybody. I told him, okay, I'll tell him, but what exactly do you want me to do? Oh, yeah, because he had refused. The elders, they were church leaders. The church leaders, I wouldn't mention their names, who are mediating in between. So I went and met one of them. He had just retired or something from a church as a bishop. So he told me, we have tried our best. And I've told William Ruto to leave it to God. Don't look for Uhuru Kenyatta again. Leave it to God. And I think he was right. We left everything to God. And I believe by leaving to God, God's will happen for all of us.
So as